Welcome to a deep dive into the world of dynamic psychiatry. We're going way back before Freud, like way, way back, to uncover the fascinating origins. Picture this. It's 18th century Europe, and mesmerism is all the rage. Parisian salons are abuzz with this talk of magnetic fluids and these miraculous cures. It sounds like something straight out of like a historical novel or something. But this was real life.
It really captured the public imagination. And the man at the heart of it all, Franz Mesmer, he was a physician, and he genuinely believed he stumbled onto something groundbreaking. He called it animal magnetism, this invisible fluid that he thought flowed through all living things, influencing our health and well-being.
So he wasn't just putting on a show for these people. He really believed this.
Oh, he was convinced. Mesmer believed that this fluid could be manipulated with magnets, and even just through suggestion alone, to cure a whole host of ailments. And this obviously put him at odds with the scientific establishment at the time.
I can imagine.
Yeah, challenging those deeply held beliefs about the body and illness. It's a pattern we see throughout history, right? New ideas, they face resistance, even ridicule sometimes, before they eventually gain acceptance.
Makes you wonder what radical ideas today will be considered common knowledge in the future. But that's a whole other deep dive. Let's talk about one of Mesmer's students, Weisiger. He kind of took things in a different direction.
He did. Weisiger shifted the focus away from these magnetic fluids and toward something we would recognize today, hypnosis. He found he could induce these sleep-like states in his patients, not through magnets, but through the power of suggestion alone.
And this is where Victor comes into play, Weisiger's most famous patient.
Exactly. Victor's case was a turning point. Through these sleep-like states, Weisiger was able to uncover Victor's hidden anxieties and even help him resolve some personal issues he had. This case highlighted something crucial: the power of the therapist-patient relationship and the potential of suggestion in treating psychological distress.
So even though they were working with limited knowledge and a completely different vocabulary, these early magnetizers, they were essentially grappling with the unconscious mind long before Freud.
Absolutely. They were pioneers, stumbling upon these remarkable phenomena and laying the groundwork for what would become dynamic psychiatry. It's fascinating to see how these early observations, even if they weren't always accurate, planted the seeds for a completely new way of understanding the human mind.
So we've gone from mesmerism in Parisian salons to something that's starting to sound a bit more like the psychology we know today.
Yeah.
How do we get from there to the dynamic psychiatry of the 19th century?
Well, the 19th century saw the emergence of what we call the first dynamic psychiatry. It wasn't so much a formal school, more like a loose collection of individuals who shared this fascination with the hidden workings of the mind.
So what were some of their shared interests? What set them apart?
Well, they were united by a few key ideas. First, they were all really intrigued by hypnosis. They recognized its potential to unlock the secrets of the unconscious mind.
So taking those early observations with mesmerism and sleep-like states a step further.
Exactly. They saw it as this powerful tool to explore these deeper mental processes that influence our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors. Secondly, they were really interested in what they called magnetic diseases, conditions that they believed stem from psychological causes rather than purely physical ones.
So conditions we might now understand as having a psychosomatic component.
Precisely. They were grappling with this idea that the mind and body are interconnected, that emotional distress could actually manifest in physical symptoms.
Oh, wow.
Think about how revolutionary that idea was at the time, this shift away from purely physical explanations for illness.
Yeah, it makes you realize how much our understanding of health and illness has evolved over time.
Absolutely. And the third common thread was their shared belief in a dual model of the mind. They recognized that there's this interplay between our conscious and unconscious thoughts and desires.
So not just a single unified mind, but different levels of awareness influencing our actions. But this wasn't all just happening in doctors' offices and research labs, was it? The 19th century seemed to have this cultural obsession with the unconscious.
It's true. Think about the literature of the time. Gothic novels full of mystery and hidden motives and psychological suspense,
Right.
or the spiritualist movement,
Yeah.
with its seances and attempts to communicate with the dead. All of these cultural trends reflect this fascination with the hidden realms of the mind.
Like society itself was going through a collective exploration of the unconscious.
Exactly. It was a time of great intellectual and social change. And these ideas about the unconscious were bubbling to the surface everywhere you looked. Now, while this first dynamic psychiatry laid some crucial groundwork, it did lack the rigorous methodology that would characterize later schools of thought.
So they were on the right track.
Yeah.
but hadn't quite figured out the scientific method for studying the mind.
Precisely, but their observations, their willingness to explore these uncharted territories of the mind. It set the stage for some truly groundbreaking figures. One of those figures was Jean-Martin Charcot, this towering figure in neurology who practiced at the Salpêtrière Hospital in Paris. This hospital, by the way, was a place with its own fascinating history, kind of a microcosm of 19th century French society.
Charcot was a big deal, wasn't he? He brought the study of hysteria into the scientific mainstream.
He did. Charcot was a master of observation and documentation. He meticulously studied his patients with hysteria, looking for patterns, trying to understand the underlying mechanisms of this mysterious condition.
And he wasn't afraid of a little showmanship either, right? He was known for these dramatic demonstrations of hypnosis on his patients.
He was a captivating lecturer, that's for sure. You could say he was something of a celebrity doctor in his day. His lectures were always packed, filled with students and curious onlookers, eager to witness his methods.
But Charcot wasn't without his critics. His ideas about hysteria, particularly his belief that he had identified specific physical signs of the condition, were eventually challenged.
That's right. In fact, some of his ideas were later debunked, highlighting just how much our understanding of these conditions was, and still is, evolving. But even though some of his theories didn't hold up over time, his impact was undeniable. He legitimized the study of hysteria, bringing it out of the shadows and into the realm of scientific inquiry.
And his work also sparked a major debate in the field, right? Because he wasn't the only one with strong opinions about hypnosis and the nature of hysteria. Enter the Nancy School, led by Hippolyte Bernheim.
Ah, yes, the Nancy School. They had a very different take on things. They emphasized the power of suggestion, not just in causing mental conditions, but also in treating them. They believed that hypnosis was a normal state, accessible to everyone, and not some rare neurological condition like Charcot proposed.
So this was a real clash of the titans, these two schools of thought going head to head.
Absolutely. And these weren't just academic squabbles either. They had real-world implications for how mental illness was understood and treated.
So you have these passionate debates, these competing theories about the mind and its hidden depths, all playing out on this big stage. It feels like the perfect breeding ground for new ideas.
And that's exactly what happened. The late 19th century was a time of incredible intellectual ferment. You had Darwin shaking things up with his theory of evolution, Nietzsche challenging traditional morality and the nature of truth. It was a time when old certainties were being questioned, and people were becoming more open to the idea that unseen forces could shape our lives.
And into this world steps a young Sigmund Freud. It's almost as if the stage was set for him.
It's remarkable, isn't it? The ground was so fertile for psychoanalysis to take root. Remember those magnetic diseases we talked about, the ones the early dynamic psychiatrists were so fascinated by? They were already exploring this idea of psychogenesis, the idea that psychological factors could cause physical symptoms. Freud would later build on this with his work on conversion disorder.
So they were already chipping away at that mind-body connection.
Exactly. And let's not forget the role of dreams. Remember how mesmerists believed dreams could reveal hidden truths? They were onto something there, tapping into the idea that the unconscious could communicate through symbols. This, of course, became a cornerstone of Freudian dream analysis.
It's like they were piecing together a puzzle and Freud came along and found the missing pieces.
That's a great way to put it. And it wasn't just the big theoretical ideas either. Think about the importance of the therapist-patient relationship, the power of suggestion that we saw with Poiseuille and Bernheim. These themes paved the way for the concept of transference, which became central to psychoanalytic therapy.
It really highlights how scientific progress builds upon itself. Even Freud, who we often think of as this revolutionary figure, was standing on the shoulders of giants.
Absolutely. He was able to synthesize these different threads, these observations and experiments, and weave them into this comprehensive theory of the mind. It's a testament to how knowledge evolves through this ongoing dialogue, this back and forth between different thinkers and schools of thought.
Well, this deep dive has been like taking a journey through the history of ideas, seeing how our understanding of the mind has been shaped by these fascinating and sometimes forgotten figures.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What seemingly groundbreaking discoveries are we on the verge of right now? What will future generations look back on with a mix of awe and amusement, wondering how we didn't see it all along?
That's something to ponder, isn't it? The mysteries of the mind continue to fascinate and challenge us. And who knows, maybe someday our current understanding will be just another chapter in this ever-evolving story of dynamic psychiatry.